Welcome to the Worst Case Scenario channel. Episode 1, Building a Basic Emergency Kit, FEMA Edition. This episode will be talking about building a basic disaster supply kit. I'll be sticking pretty closely to FEMA suggestions on this, with a little bit of input on a few of the items that I'd like to provide based on my experience in creating disaster recovery kits for myself and my family. First of all, water. 1 gallon of water per person per day for at least 3 days for drinking and sanitation is what FEMA suggests. The more the better, in my opinion. This is really a key element. This is probably the most important part of your emergency kit and the cheapest and easiest thing to get. I include water purification tablets in all my emergency kits also, just because it's so small an item. It takes up so very little space, and this is just such a key thing to have as water. Next on the list is food. FEMA suggests at least a 3-day supply of non-perishable food. I keep a product called survival tabs in all of my emergency kits. It's small, lightweight, ultra compact, and has an over 10-year shelf life. This little container is advertised as a 15-day food source, but you'd want to supplement with whatever else you could find. It'll keep you pretty well balanced on nutrients, but look at the label and see what it's not 100% on if you go this route, because you'll want to have a good plan in place. But that 10-year plus shelf life, that is the seller. That along with the size for me. Another item I like to keep in my emergency kit is rice. Properly stored rice will be around and edible for a lot longer than I'll probably be on this planet. I almost didn't include rice in this video because it does require some prep work beyond the scope of this video, and you might not have the resources to prepare it. But I decided to include it anyways because it is so easily obtainable and it has such an incredibly long shelf life. You have a lot of other options such as powdered milk, canned goods, freeze-dried foods, but the first couple of options I gave you are the longest lasting ones, and the other stuff you'll have to rotate out maybe every year, 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, whereas this other stuff is going to be there for a very long time, and that's what I'm looking for. Something that if I forget to rotate it out, it'll still be there for a long, long time and edible. Next on the list is battery or hand crank radio and NOAA weather radio with tone alert and extra batteries for both. There's a lot of products on the market. I'd suggest getting one that has a cell phone charger as well, because cell phone is another item that they suggest having, and this is a pretty easy way to combine a bunch of things into one item. FEMA recommends a cell phone with charger, inverter, or solar charger. Now, I love solar power, but for this particular situation, I would strongly suggest having that crank, because you might be in a situation where it's just not practical to charge it via solar. Now, having the solar charger is good also, and having both is even better, but having that crank power is pretty critical, because you might be in a situation where you cannot go outside, or there's just not enough sun to charge it, and you need it now. The next thing FEMA recommends is a flashlight and extra batteries. All the emergency radios in my shot above have flashlights built in, and it's pretty common for that nowadays. If you have a smartphone with a camera in it that has a flash, chances are there's an application that will allow that to function as a flashlight as well. And even if not, there's applications that will allow it to be full white screen to give it the most amount of light possible. Now granted, the second case would not be enough to be a good flashlight really, but it's better than nothing. Having backups is good. On that note, smartphone is something that's extremely helpful to have in my opinion. I'll go into that more in a later episode, but that's one of the things that I splurged on just because I thought it was so important to have all that information on hand. And I'll talk more about that later. The next item is an important one, first aid kit. There are a lot of little nice first aid kits I've seen out there that are pre-packaged, but if you can't afford one, then really just throw some stuff in the bag, whatever you can get your hands on, and put it in your emergency kit. I don't want to dwell on this too much because I could easily do a whole episode on the first aid kit alone, but for now, just have something in there. The next item is a dust mask. You have a lot of options when it comes to dust masks. The ones in my kit, I spent about 30 cents each on. But there's other ones that run hundreds of dollars. And it really depends on what you want for your kit. And it's a personal decision. They also recommend plastic sheeting and duct tape. For my kits, I have kind of some dual purpose items. I have emergency shelter, emergency blanket, and ponchos. Now these all can function as what they're advertised to, or I can take them and use them as the plastic sheeting to airtight, or at least as best airtight as I can, my emergency space if air quality is an issue. These products are not very expensive, but if you're on a really tight budget, then garbage bags are easy to get and can be cut up to make wide plastic sheets if you needed. I wouldn't cut them up right now though. I'd keep them because keeping them for sanitation in an emergency might be what you use them for as well. Garbage bags are actually an item that is on the list as well though, along with moist towelettes and some plastic ties for personal sanitation, because you might be stuck in a room for a while. The last four items are ones that I think people might not come to mind when they're building their kit. A whistle to alert people that you need help. A wrench or pliers to turn off utilities. A manual can opener, not an electric one. And some local maps. That's everything that FEMA suggests for a basic supply kit. They do have suggestions for additional emergency supplies and want you to keep in mind that you may need special things not in here to suit your family's specific needs or your personal needs. But the items that I mentioned are things that should be in everyone's personal supply kit. One of the things that I think is missing from the disaster resupply kit that FEMA recommends is a backpack. This may not be an option for everyone, but loading your emergency supplies into one or more backpacks I think is a very important step, because mandatory evacuation is always a possibility. So a backpack is what I think is missing from FEMA's list that should be a part of all disaster supply kits. But that's just my opinion. Do you agree or disagree? And what do you think should belong in every single disaster recovery kit that FEMA didn't include? I'd love to see your comments.